So, I want to keep improving, but I apologize, I can't really work at the pace that a lot of people would like. Sure, right now I'd immediately like to get these improvements and other improvements right now, and you know, it's tough. I'm being pulled in all these different directions, all the stuff I have to do right now. Just to give you another piece of perspective, can you imagine right now, if while all this is going on and I'm so busy with everything, can you imagine if I had gone through with the documentary that I was talking about doing a couple months ago? I was supposed to start filming like right about now. So can you imagine me being in the middle of all these games that I'm already backlogged on, right? Working on these projects, the throwback channel, and now telling you guys, oh, by the way, now I can't stream. This week, you know, it's going to be a half week, entire days away, and stuff like that.
Well, I would imagine that if you were actually going to go through with the documentary, then you wouldn't have planned to do all of these things. You wouldn't have started DSP throwbacks. Maybe you wouldn't have played all of the games that you decided to play. That would have been the smart thing to do if you did indeed decide that you wanted to go through with it. But I'm curious as to why you decided that now would have been a good time to start filming for those things. Because you knew ahead of time what your schedule was going to look like come this time this year. You knew what games were coming out and you knew that they were going to be lengthy RPGs. You also knew ahead of time that you intended on doing DSP throwbacks at some point. And you know at the same time every single year that you have to do your taxes and it takes you an astonishing amount of time to do them incorrectly. So again, I have to wonder why you told Mike Clum that now would be a good time to start filming if you were going to. But any normal person could have made all of that work. Any normal person who wanted to get a documentary done could have made it happen. But DSP's a special style individual. He's not like other girls. So obviously there's no way it could have worked for him, dude.
You know, so, I mean, I think, quite honestly, I dodged a big bullet there. And what I mean by that is not to say that working with a documentary with Mike Clum is a bullet, but I don't think that, honestly, with the situation I'm in my life, right, that I would have been able to handle that at all. It would have been overload. And again, as I've already reiterated previously, imagine if I was trying to do that. Now, the thing is, this is very important. You know, a documentary about me would have had to be done well. And basically, imagine if I'm just like at my wit's end, stressed out, overworked, and now it's going to end up not being that good, right? Because, you know, it's just as much Mike Clum working on a documentary as it is me. You know, I would be a major part of the input of this thing. Now, how am I going to be creative? How am I going to be entertaining? How am I going to be going around different filming locations and doing all this kind of stuff when I'm already exhausted to my wit's end, right?
Exhausted to your wits' end? Dude, you play video games for a living. You sit in the same seat for multiple hours a day playing video games. You don't work in a coal mine, you don't do construction, you don't build shit, you don't make shit. You actually provide nothing of value every single day and continue to make a living off of it somehow. Stop trying to convince people that you actually do anything. And how are you going to be creative and entertaining in the documentary if you're exhausted? When are you ever creative or entertaining? And I mean genuinely entertaining like you want to be entertaining, not the way that you entertain the detractors by just being yourself. And I've never been the subject of a documentary, thank God, really. But I would also imagine that that is a lot easier than a physically demanding manual labor style job. So why is he sitting here pretending that he's gonna have to be like alert and awake and completely aware of everything that's going on? Bro, you're just gonna be sitting there talking to the camera like you do every single day. You're gonna be doing your favorite thing, wasting oxygen and telling your life story for the 1,000,000th time. Or is keeping track of all of the lies that you've told throughout the years really that taxing on your brain that you don't think that you'd be able to do it?
I just don't think it would have worked, being honest, especially my lifestyle with how much that I work and everything. Imagine if, like, these weeks, I was like, by the way, guys, 3 days this week I can't stream at all. The other 3 days, it's half days. Just because I'm, you know, filming all over the place. Oh, by the way, I also have to work on my taxes this month. Oh, by the way, we're in the midst of 300-hour games that I'm never going to finish, and there's more coming that I have to skip all of them now because I'm working on a documentary, right?
Well, if all of those are projects that your fans actually care about and want to see come to fruition, then they would understand. And I know we go over this all the time, but DSP is his own boss. He could stream whenever he wants. He's not stuck to some rigid schedule like he pretends to be. If he can't make the day stream because he's out filming the documentary, he could just stream later than he normally does, and it wouldn't be a big problem at all. But no, we have to stick to the schedule because that's the only thing that even gives DSP's business a modicum of professionalism. Or at least so he thinks. Everybody else can see it for exactly what it is, which is just a huge LARP. He just loves pretending like he actually owns a business, like he's some sort of professional style businessman with a degree, when the reality is he's just a clown wearing earwax encrusted Zelda jammies.
See, I think the difference here is when you look at someone who can work on a documentary, I'm going to be honest, it's probably someone who just has a lot of time, that they're not particularly doing something too important with their time, that they have time to do that shit. I don't, right? Like, I'm just constant. Everywhere I go is work, got stuff going on here, busy with my personal life. You know, I got shit going on. Yeah, I don't have time to just drop everything and just be filming. So
But that just doesn't make any sense, DSP, because typically people who get documentaries made about them aren't nobodies. They're people who get things done. They're people of interest. They're people who do things. I think that people who are typically the subject of documentaries are either done doing the thing that they're known for, or they're just way better with their time management than you are. Because your time management skills are absolutely abysmal. That goes without saying. Everybody is fully aware of this. It's not even worth talking about right now. I mean, the first piece of work that you even bother to do is when you start your stream at 11 o'clock your time. That's a really late start for the average person, and you've done nothing beforehand. Sure, you claim that you brush your teeth, take a shower, and chew your coffee, but you don't prepare anything for the stream. You don't actually find any sort of articles that are interesting to talk about during the stream. You don't bother interacting with your audience via the comments or the videos before ever starting the stream. You're not trying new things in OBS. You're not making your own thumbnails. You're not actively looking into making improvements on your stream whatsoever. So your actually first piece of productivity is at 11 a.m. But you're far too busy, dude. Give me a break.
honestly, I do think that I dodged a bullet there. And on top of that, people are saying, I guess, that Mike Clum is now working on a documentary with this guy EDP. Now, here's the thing. I know absolutely nothing about this guy. I've never followed him. I never watched his content. All I know is that he's infamously known on the internet that apparently he was caught out trying to meet with underage girls. I think that's what it is, right? I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I think that that's the case, that, like, he was a YouTuber who was popular, and then at some point, he got framed, essentially. Like, people were catfishing him so that he would show up to meet underage girls, and then come to find out it was just a frame job. Like, they totally set him up to expose him on the internet for who he really was.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there, Phil, because it honestly sounds like you're defending EDP. I know that that's not what you're trying to do. I know you just don't have the best grasp on the English language, but you're really not looking for the word framed, because framed implies that he was set up, that he actually didn't do it, and that people are putting the blame on him for something that, again, he didn't do. It's pretty cut and dry. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The man showed up for the cupcake, and if you know, you know. But you remember how I said that DSP doesn't look into things before the stream that he's actually going to talk about on the stream? This is exactly one of those things that he should have been looking into before he started the stream, because he knew he was going to talk about this today. It was all over the internet the night before, and he knew that people were going to ask him about it. You're meaning to tell me that he couldn't find 10 minutes out of his super busy schedule to actually look into EDP and see the things that he did? You're meaning to tell me that he couldn't look into it whatsoever to figure out whether or not the story was actually true? It is, by the way. I mean, if he just quit pulling Hogan's while he was in the bathroom and decided to actually look things up on his phone instead, he'd be so much more informed on everything, being that he takes a 20-minute bathroom break just about every hour. But I just want to say again for the record that I don't think that DSP was trying to defend EDP. He's just stupid and doesn't know how to talk.
But apparently some people say, well, why did he not go to jail? And apparently it's because the way that he was set up, it's not admissible as evidence in court, right? Like technically, because they set him up like that, no crime was ever committed, so he never was held accountable for that behavior. But apparently he got totally canceled on the internet. He fell apart. He went from being a YouTuber who had a prominent channel and everything to basically, like, you know, done. And hey, again, that's all I know from what I've heard, word of mouth. I've never watched a documentary. I haven't done research for myself. That's all I know, okay? And can I be honest here? Because I will be honest with all of you, because people have been asking me about this for the past couple of days, okay?
So that's him confirming that people have been asking him for the past couple of days, and he knew that today he was going to talk about it. You don't get asked things for several days and then just spontaneously decide to talk about it. Because if he was just going to abruptly start talking about it, he probably would have done it when he was actually being asked about it, no? But I love that we got another example of DSP doing exactly what he claims that other people do about him, which is just hearing what everybody else is saying about somebody on the internet and running with it, not actually doing any independent research and looking into it for himself, but instead just believing what they say and simply following it up with, oh, I don't know though, as if that's some sort of defense. You know damn well that if a detractor were to try and do that, he would absolutely call them out, say that they're hurting his livelihood and he's the reason that his business is failing and all that normal shit that he does. And I guess shout out DTF Steak Fries for pretty much pointing that out in the chat. Were you watching detractor videos on him? Because he's right, Phil, that's exactly what it sounds like.
First documentary Mike Clum does is on Boogie. The entire documentary is about Boogie basically being a miserable human being. The sad, dark life of Boogie, right? But who made Boogie's life sad and dark? Right? Was it a group of people who just decided to, you know, ruin his life? No, his life is sad and dark because he is sad and dark. And when you watch that documentary, you see the things in it that, you know, he could improve, he could change for the better, and he just doesn't. He keeps engaging with trolls on social media. He keeps doing the awful life behaviors. He's a miserable wretch because of his own decisions and actions that don't change, correct?
Kind of sounds like somebody that we know, but I'll let him cook.
And I think what's supposed to happen is you'd watch it, you feel sorry for him, and it was supposed to turn his life around. Has it turned his life around? No. Not at all. He's on a lolcow podcast. He freaking keeps doing this kind of almost degenerative content on the internet. He's not going to change. It's pretty obvious at this point, correct?
Look, I'm no fan of Boogie, and I'm not gonna sit here and defend him. I definitely think that talking to EDP is a bad look for him. And everything that he's done and said since starting lolcow Live has made him really cringe. I mean, he was cringe beforehand, don't get me wrong. But I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that he's not more relevant now than he's been in a long time. Now, is it for good reasons? Absolutely not, but sometimes it doesn't matter on the internet. And some people have been known to turn that infamy, to turn all of that negativity into money. I mean, one of the very people that Boogie is constantly working with, Keemstar, is pretty much known for doing exactly that. So DSP, let's not sit here and pretend like you're so much better than Boogie is, because honestly, I think that you're both despicable in your own ways.
So then, you know, Mike Clum comes to me and says, I want to do a different kind of documentary with you. It would not be like Boogie's documentary. It would be very different, you know, covering your life and all the things that you've been through and basically your history as a content creator on the internet, the ups and downs. And yes, it's going to feature people who don't like you talking about you, right? But at the same time, you'll be able to clap back essentially and give your side of the story of everything going on, and we'll be able to accurately recount what's happened to you and your business and your channels over the years, and why so many people who literally don't know an actual fact about you don't like you, right?
And that's just a blatant misrepresentation of the situation, just so that he can sit here and pretend like everybody who dislikes him is crazy, is out of their mind, insane, obsessed weirdos. When the truth of the matter is that most detractors probably know more facts about DSP than any of his fans. Maybe even DSP himself. Because DSP is constantly retconning his history. He's constantly telling so many lies that he believes some of them himself. You can tell by the way that he says it. But if any of you watch WPIG, if you don't, I highly recommend that you do, you've seen DSP's history. He's constantly getting debunked over there. But yes, everybody that dislikes him can't list a single fact about him, of course.
And I like that. I absolutely like that idea, right? And that was essentially what we were going for. It was supposed to be a fair level documentary that's going to cover the good and the bad. But basically, if you watched this, it wasn't a pity party documentary. It was going to be more of an honest, and there's going to be some comedy in it, and there was going to be other things in it. You know, it was meant to be an entertaining piece. You know, when you're making a documentary that's like 90 minutes long, you want people to be enjoying every second of it, not on board in this part or whatever, right? So there was going to be all that stuff, right? But of course, you guys were very apprehensive about it, saying, you know, I don't know if this makes sense to do, because the only documentary that Mike Clum's done up to now is this Boogie documentary that doesn't sound like that, right? It's like basically he turned to Boogie. Well, he didn't turn Boogie. Like, this was their idea, you know? Basically, what he wanted to do was make Boogie look pathetic so that people would feel bad for him. And I said, that's not what I want at all. That's not what I want out of my documentary. I'm not sad. My life's not dark. I actually have a really good life, you know, in regards to my work and my personal life. Just because a million people on the internet talk shit about me daily doesn't mean that I'm not actually in a positive place in my life. That's great. It's the opposite situation of Boogie, right?
This is a really irritating lie that he keeps trying to tell, that he keeps trying to spout off to everybody as though it's a fact. The man's either lying, in denial, or completely delusional. Because how often do you hear people who are actually in good places in their life constantly reassuring you that they're in good places? Let's run down the list of all of the things that DSP has going on in his life. His business is doing worse year after year. His viewer count is plummeting. Nobody is willing to work with him, and he can't get sponsors. He's trapped in a loveless marriage with his soulmare. He can't afford or is outright unwilling to get his cat's health taken care of because he's too busy feeding his addictions of pulling sweaty men and drinking gin. His back is broken, his house is in shambles, and apparently he lives inside of a GTA Online lobby every time he goes outside. So really, what positives are there? I mean, we didn't even talk about how he has actually no friends outside of his cat and his wife, and he hasn't seen his parents in years. We didn't even talk about how apparently there's a huge conspiracy going on at the utility companies, Comcast for example, that are out to get him. So I ask again, DSP, how do you have a happy life? What positives do you even have going on? Because aside from the dopamine hit that you get every time you do a poll, there really isn't anything happy.
So basically, the way I see it, it would have been very different, okay? That's essentially what was discussed. That's what we're going to work on, a different kind of documentary. But now you're going to tell me the next documentary Mike Clum's going to do is this guy EDP, a guy who literally went from YouTube popularity to being exposed supposedly, and I gotta say that because I don't know if there's concrete evidence or not. I can only tell you from what I've seen and heard hearsay on the internet. Supposedly, he was exposed for pedophilia, or at least accusations of pedophilia, was canceled, and literally no one wants anything to do with this guy anymore, right?
It's surprising to me how frequently DSP manages to miss these easy layups. The kind of takes that anybody could say and they would just instantly win fans over with them. Because it's just a slam dunk when you look into EDP to say, yes, the man is a PDF file. It's very easy to condemn this behavior and instantly get people on your side, but DSP is very strangely fence-sitting this. Again, I don't think that he's trying to defend EDP, but he's not willing to say that he actually did the thing. It's all alleged. It's all, oh, I don't know, I didn't look into it. And that's why it's important to look into these things when you're going to talk about them, especially given the audience that DSP has. He knows there's a lot of hate watchers. He knows that the detractors exist, and at least some of them are going to spin the narrative as if he was trying to defend EDP.
So I guess the question is, what's the story, right? And maybe that is the story, is to find out the true story of what happened. But from what everyone says, it's like a slam dunk case. Like, it's not like you can dispute it and say, oh, it was fake. Like, it happened. He was exposed for it, and that's why he got canceled, and that's why he's not prominent anymore, you know? So the thing is, I didn't even know anything about it until you guys told me a couple days ago. You're like, are you aware that Mike Clum's working with EDP? And I'm like, no. And then, of course, it starts showing up in my feed. Boogie has met with EDP, and they're sitting down to eat a meal, and the meal is like a bunch of Big Macs and powdered donuts. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the fuck? All right? Like, no, really, what the fuck? Two guys who are grossly obese sitting down to eat Big Macs and donuts together. Does that make any sense? Logically? Morally? Does that make any fucking sense? To have two guys sitting down doing that? No. They're killing themselves, right? It's awful. Why would they be doing that?
Because that's a good meal for two fat guys, DSP. It really is as simple as that. You ever eat with fat people? They slam down food. They don't care. That's how they got fat to begin with. This isn't some moral dilemma. These are two big boys who wanted to get together and do this stupid interview, and they decided what food they were gonna pick, and they said, let's eat and throw down like some big boys. It's very strange to me that this is something that he wanted to pick out, that these two large individuals decided to eat like large individuals. It's disgusting. It's immoral. How, DSP? They're just eating food. And it's absolute gold coming from you given the size that your wife currently is. Do you say these things to her when she's eating her DoorDash? Do you tell her that she's killing herself and that it's morally wrong that she's eating these things? I don't think so. Because it's really none of your business what these two people wanted to eat. You couldn't be bothered to look into what EDP did when it involved a child, but you're worried about the food that's on the table? I think you got your priorities messed up, man.
And then I guess they released a bunch of other, like, production stills of, like, EDP posing in front of a camera dramatically for what's going to be a documentary. And, you know, to be honest here, I think that's about it for me. Well, you're going to tell me that there's going to be a guy who essentially has been exposed for pedophilia on the internet, canceled because of it. What's the story to tell there? Exactly. Maybe, unless there is some secret story that no one knows about, that actually this whole thing was a screw job and none of it was true, right? At all. Then I guess that's the documentary, right? I guess that's the story. But unless that's the story, I don't think there's anything to tell there. You know what I'm saying?
And that's just not the case. People have done all sorts of documentaries and interviews with convicted killers and worse. A lot of those are just looking to understand why they did the things they did, how they came to be. To say that there's nothing interesting going to happen in the documentary if there's not some hidden behind the scenes story is absurd. Now, I personally don't agree with paying the guy, but saying that it wouldn't be interesting is completely dishonest. Maybe it's actually not for DSP because he's not interested in really anything at this point. Nothing but scamming the next viewers so that he can continue to feed his addiction and feed his wife.
And a lot of people already on the internet are very upset with Mike Clum, basically saying, why are you giving this guy a venue to be heard when basically we were done with him years ago? Like, we don't want him to have a venue. We don't want him to have a way to speak out about anything because he's a scumbag, essentially, from what was found out about him, right? Again, I don't know, but I'm just speaking from, you know, what I've heard on the internet. So here's the thing. That's what's funny. The Boogie stuff, EDP stuff, that shit has nothing to do with me or my content or my life, right? At all. Couldn't be further different from my situation at all. You know, I have a full-time, very, you know, productive business that's successful. I have people who support me. I have people who love me in my personal life. My life is going good, except for the fact that there's thousands of people on the internet who shit on me on a daily basis for personal gain. Outside of that, everything's going good.
And here he goes with this shit again. We already ran down the list. I don't have to do it again. But it probably is a wise idea that he's distancing himself from EDP. The best decision that DSP has made in a very long time, actually. Still not outright condemning anything that he did because, again, he didn't do his own research and can't say with certainty that he actually did those things. But we're going to distance ourselves anyway.
Right? I don't have a horrible story to tell about my sad, miserable life, about being accused of horrible things like pedophilia. Nothing like that. Okay?
But you can't say that, DSP, because there was a large group of people that think that you were talking to Pandalee before she turned 18. And the timeline proving that is very convincing. So I wouldn't sit up here and claim these things. I wouldn't draw any more attention to it than necessary, because people might start digging. Because you know, when you say things like this, it becomes a challenge. And when you throw down a challenge to these internet types, they're gonna find something eventually.
So I couldn't be further from guys like that. So then why would I be making a documentary with someone who makes those kind of documentaries, right? And that's kind of the take I have on it. Like, okay, maybe the Boogie one was the first one, but you're going in a different direction. But now the next one is with a guy like EDP. It's like, what? Like, wait, what? I don't know, man. You know, so at the very point here, I'm very happy that I have not gotten wrapped up in all of this shit. You know, in the last year, they tried to get me to go on a stupid lolcow podcast. Thank God I made the completely 100% correct decision to not be involved with that kind of crap. And I'm, you know, doing my own thing. I was interested in doing, you know, this documentary if it was going to be what I was told it was going to be. But now when you're telling me the first two projects that Mike Clum is doing is literally two guys considered ginormous lolcows, not even, I wouldn't even say EDP is a lolcow. EDP is just like, you know, people think of him as a heinous person, right? So do I want to be on the string of documentaries about people like that? No.
I mean, to be fair, those documentaries would have nothing to do with yours or you as a person, so I don't know why it would matter whether or not Mike Clum works on these style of documentaries if yours doesn't turn out that way. You were the one telling everybody that you got final creative say in what went into the documentary and what didn't. So I would imagine that it would be nothing similar to those two documentaries and you wouldn't have any issues, right? God, I sound like DSP when I say right at the end of a sentence like that.
No, I don't. And I think now I really looking at the situation, not only would it not have made sense for me to do the documentary because I don't know how I would have done it with my busy work schedule and lifestyle, it would have completely overworked me and kind of destroyed me, honestly, I think, right? But in addition, now seeing the string of stuff coming out of that documentary, it's like, I think I definitely made the right decision, man. You know, I really do. I think I made the right decision. I don't know.
I think if we have DSP's best interest in mind, I think that he did make the right decision. He didn't need anybody inside the Snort Fort recording and showing everybody what it looked like in there. He didn't need to be airing out all of his dirty laundry online in a full-length documentary that he was a part of. All of that goes against his best interest, because what's best for him is hiding on the internet and continuing to stream to his handful of dents that are going to continue to bankroll his lifestyle. He doesn't need more eyes, and he knows that. These few people that do bankroll him are going to continue to do exactly that. There's no need to try and garner more eyes on his shit show because nobody's gonna stick around because they genuinely like him, because even he has to understand at this point that he is not likable. He is not getting new viewers. But regardless of whether that documentary was going to be a fluff piece and try and paint all detractors as schizo style weirdos, the information that we could have gained from seeing inside the Snort Fort, getting these interviews with people that are in DSP's personal life, would have been worth it. Because I personally don't give a shit what normies on the internet think about the detractor community. If you're in the Snortex, you know what's up.
Maybe you guys disagree. Because again, if things did go forward the way that we had discussed, which is what I've been transparent with all of you about, that it was not supposed to be that kind of documentary about a lolcow or a horrible embarrassment or a person with horrible history. It was supposed to be, hey, here's a normal guy running a business, did it his own way, and over the years reacted poorly to the criticism on the internet, and then people just learned to hate him for reasons of personal benefit, and here's that story, right? Now, love him or hate him, go check out his content. If you like it, good for you, right? If you don't, oh well, at least you got to know his full story so you understand the references you hear all the time. Like, that was supposed to be the point, right?
I understand what DSP is saying, and that the intent of the documentary that he wanted to make with Mike Clum was not to be about a lolcow. It was not to cover the terrible history that he has and all of the horrible things that he's done. But if you're doing a documentary on DSP, those things come up and they cannot go unanswered when doing a documentary. Because if they do, the documentary is bad. If you leave people having more questions than answers when it comes to the subject of a documentary, you have a bad documentary. They're supposed to understand what's going on. They're supposed to understand understand how we got to this point. And if you're not talking about all of the terrible things that DSP has done, and you're not talking about his status on the internet as a lolcow, you're doing a bad job. I'm not saying that Mike Clum couldn't have tried to spin it. That is what he does professionally for real companies. But to say that it wasn't going to be covered, to say that wasn't the intent of the documentary, like it wasn't going to happen naturally, is completely absurd.
So anyway, I don't know. I'm actually, perhaps, right, did the right thing here, you know? Because it's funny, like someone like Bill Williams says, Mike Clum is appealing to a certain type of audience and demographic. I don't think that the final product would have reflected what you intended it to be. Maybe you're right. You know, the thing is, in life, you don't know. You don't know, but you don't take chances on, you don't know what's going to happen. But here's the thing. Last year, I took a chance on an interview that originally I didn't even want to do. It was just, I was supposed to be a guest on a show. And it turns into this interview, and the interview essentially becomes a three-ring circus of detractor drama that then benefits detractors for how many months and ruins everyone's experience here on my content for like many months. And I learned from my lesson on that. I really did. Like, if that hadn't happened, likely I might have gone through with this documentary. But after last year, I think I've learned my lesson to stay away from this drama shit. That it doesn't help anyone around here, right? Like I said, maybe there will be one day when I decide that a documentary makes sense, okay? Right? For now, I don't think so.
So it's all Craig and the side-scrollers' fault that we didn't get a Mike Clum documentary. Sometimes they giveth and sometimes they taketh away. But real quick self-plug, the 1-year anniversary of the side-scrollers interview is coming up, and I'm thinking about doing a stream where I watch the entire thing and give my thoughts on it, considering I've never done that. I'm just trying to figure out when I want to do that. But he always misrepresents the side-scrollers interview without fail. He loves to pretend that they came in with maliciousness in mind, when the reality is that Adam didn't even know who he was until he was there. But it didn't take him long to figure out who DSP was and the games that he played, and he wasn't having it. Say what you want about the side scrollers now, because they're kind of regarded themselves, but the piece that they did on DSP, the interview that they conducted with him, was 100% fair to him and honestly gave him more benefit of the doubt than I think most people would have. I mean, they let him spout a lot of nonsense, and a lot of that shit didn't add up, and they could see that it wasn't adding up, but they let him continue to spin his lies. And allowing him to spin his lies for as long as he did is what made the interview so good, because when he finally got called out and told that these things aren't adding up and his story doesn't make any sense, he had no answer. But like I said, maybe we'll watch it soon.
For now, I don't think it makes sense. Number one, I can't fit it in with my life as it is. And number two, I believe it would very much just bring way more drama to this community than anything else. And what's the point of that, right? Who benefits from that? Some people do. Boogie thought he did. Boogie thought he benefited from drama. I think that's the problem. Like someone like Boogie, he literally thinks that all he'll ever get attention for the rest of his life is fabricated drama on the internet. So he just keeps fabricating more so people keep paying attention to him. Him sitting down with EDP to eat a bunch of fucking Big Macs and donuts. It's fucking disgusting, right? It's completely immoral. But, oh, look at these two lolcow guys. Let's laugh at them and talk about them today. So he gets attention, right? Like, that's not me.
Yeah, you're right, DSP. That's not you, because you're way less relevant than either of those two people are right now. You're super busy being irrelevant in your own pocket of the internet where everybody is continuing to point and laugh at you like you're some sort of sideshow. So while a bunch of people are online talking about Boogie and EDP for better or for worse, you get to continue to seethe and cope in your snort for it here. And we get to continue to make these videos and watch these videos. Isn't that so much fun? Again, say what you want about Boogie, but he's doing something. He has people talking about him. He is actively working on a project. What is DSP doing? Playing video games that he hates, scamming people out of their disability checks, and watching his own content from a decade ago so that he can goat laugh over it and make the same shitty jokes. Truly level 1 behavior.
I'm literally the polar opposite. I want nothing to do with that. I just want people to come by and hang out with me and enjoy games and a fun discussion during a podcast, and I want to branch out over the years. Now I'm doing throwback content because I'm such a long time and prolific creator. I want to eventually get into other topics of discussion as we've talked about this year. I don't want to be a guy that literally the only reason you'll pay attention to me is because I did something embarrassing on the internet today. Okay?
Well, mission failed, DSP, because that's the only reason that most of the people pay attention to you on the internet. Because unfortunately for you, most of the people that watch your content watch them on detractor channels, and I can tell you that the reason that they tune in is because of things that you do every single day that are embarrassing, that are cringeworthy, that make you look stupid. And it's an everyday event for you. So like I said, mission failed. Maybe you'll get them next time, but definitely not today.
So, there you have it. I'm avoiding it. I'm glad I did. Okay? So there you go. And no, so people are being so stupid because, again, what is it with these people who think that life is black and white? Because, like, literally now people in the chat, oh, so that means Mike Clum is a detractor. No, it doesn't, stupid. And just saying that is incredibly stupid that you would even say something like that. What are you talking about? Life is not black and white. I keep telling you this. There's many shades of gray and many compromises and middle of the road things. This is where reality is. It's not either someone absolutely loves you or absolutely hates you. Either they're your biggest fan or your biggest detractor. No.
But that's the mentality that you instilled in them, DSP. That's the cult behavior that you've reinforced. Because every time that somebody says something even remotely critical of something that you've done, you act as though they are just an outright detractor, that they hate your guts and have nothing worth saying. That's the behavior that you constantly display. Now, this person in chat was probably LARPing anyway, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was a genuine DSP fan, because that's the mentality that they have. If you're not with us, you're completely against us and a detractor, obviously. But I really wish that he would get off of this, oh, it's not black and white, there's shades of gray thing that he's been doing constantly recently. I'm really tired of it. I feel like every day we get a different it's not black and white, it's gray segment, and there's really just no need to do it every single day like it's the schedule.
No, I feel like my Clum would have done a neutral take. I do believe that. Like, he would have done a neutral take where, you know, you judge for yourself, right? But the fact is that when his history is Boogie and now EDP, these guys that are, you know, totally different from me, but almost similar situation to themselves, what does that mean for what this documentary would have been observed? Because here's the truth. In life, it's not about what's real, it's about how it's perceived. That's actually a really good point.
Holy shit, this guy actually just said a sentence and then goes, oh, that's actually a really good point. I'm basically the smartest person on the planet. Let me suck my own dick. I would actually laugh in DSP's face IRL if he did this shit. That's insane behavior. Quit huffing your own farts, dude. You're not the smartest person in the world. You're actually the dumbest person in the room, pretty much guaranteed every day. And the only other person in the room is Jasper Kitty. Ack, ack, ack.
In life, it's not about what's factually true. It's not about what actually happened. It's about the perception of reality. Because it doesn't matter what the truth of the matter is. If everyone believes something else, then that's their reality. And that's the situation with me, is that even though I have nothing to do with Boogie, I have nothing to do with EDP, I have nothing to do with Wings of Redemption, I'm nothing like any of them, people will constantly group me into them anyway because the perception is told to do that by a mob of people on the internet.
And this is him once again painting all of the people that dislike him and see similarities between him and all of these other people as people that can't think for themselves. There's always this mysterious mob of people who are telling people who aren't familiar with DSP at all to hate him and that he's just like all of these other lolcows. But that only begs the question, how did this mob of people form? Who was the first person to hate DSP and compare him to all of these other people? Is there no credence to the things that the original detractor was saying and spreading to everybody else? Because that person had to be forming their own thoughts because the mob didn't exist yet. But none of that actually matters because we all know the reality. So many detractors are created by DSP himself, and if they're not, most detractors wind up watching raw clip channels where there is all of the context necessary and it's just DSP being DSP.
Right? So that's the truth. Even if I did a documentary, right, that really did cover me in a very fair way, and actually showed both sides of the equation and actually fairly covered everything going on, right? Guess what would have happened? People still would have said, wow, look, this is the documentary that exposes Phil and does horrible things. What? They still would have said that.
Then what does that say about you and your situation, DSP? If the documentary would have been fair and would have represented both sides exactly how they are. If people are walking away still thinking that you're a scumbag, that you're doing everything incorrectly and nothing right, then maybe the reality is that you're a scumbag and you're doing everything incorrectly and nothing right. I mean, that's really the only conclusion to walk away with. If everything is represented as fairly as you say that it would be represented, I don't know how you could reach another conclusion, how you would still walk away thinking that everybody else is in the wrong but you.
You know, I really believe that. Like, again, I don't think I'm ever going to get a fair shake. I don't think that would ever happen because it seems to me like no matter what, there's always an underlying agenda on the internet of, you know, cancel culture, fuck this guy, he's the guy who we've hated on for over a decade, let's just keep that bandwagon rolling because it always gets us the lulz and gives us content to talk about.
But that's just not the case, DSP. If you quit being who you are, if you quit being a lolcow, people would just wind up moving on. Nobody wants to continue to make content on somebody that's not interesting. Like I always say, if you quit doing the pre-stream, which is just a therapy session at this point, and decided to go all into gameplay and are as boring as you are now, I would never watch your shit again because I cannot be bothered. It's not interesting. It's not entertaining. It doesn't matter how long I've been making fun of you or how long I've been following all of your sagas. Because if you're not entertaining me, I'm just going to move on.
I mean, again, I'll go back to the reference to that Turkey Tom documentary from in the fall, right? He does a documentary, and a lot of people are saying, it's not that bad, Phil. There's some things in there that you probably disagree with, but it's not that bad. It's mostly a neutral take, right? And I'm considering doing an interview with the guy about it after the fact. And then come to find out, the guy's going on a podcast called the Lolcow podcast, appearing as a lolcow farmer to milk people on the internet for drama content so he can make money. Like, literally, that's the premise. Then he's saying in videos about me, well, I think I've milked Phil enough. And he says this, that's disgusting, right?
Yes, Phil, completely disgusting. Milking a human, not even for sustenance. We know the meme, we get it. What are we talking about this for again? Because you refuse to acknowledge that you're a lolcow? You refuse to acknowledge the position that you hold on the internet?
That's the mentality of a lot of these people on the fucking internet, is how much can I milk out of people for personal benefit? So, no, I don't think that I want to be milked, okay? I don't. I'm done with this nonsensical stuff. I'm just going to do my own content, okay? And, you know, it is what it is. There's going to be ups and downs to that. There's going to be times when I'm playing a prominent game, there's something exciting going on, and people are interested. There's going to be times like literally right now where it's a million RPGs and people have burnout and they're waiting for new content that's different, right?
How awesome is it that he can simultaneously acknowledge that nobody is interested in the games that he's playing, are completely burnt out and waiting for new content, and not do anything about it at the same time? That's just some next level big brain high IQ type play right there. To acknowledge that people that you were supposed to be entertaining are not entertained and then doing nothing about it. But still get on stream every single day and expect a living, to expect people to give you money for shit that they don't really care about.
And that's the case, and it's never going to be, you know, that situation where we're going to always have prominence or attention. But as long as I have a positive viewer base who come and support me no matter what I do, I'm good. And I have that. I do have that. So I'm happy and grateful for that. Maybe that's why I'm different from all the others who they have to make drama in order to get any kind of attention or popularity. I don't have to do that. I can still be successful without that nonsense. And I'm happy for that and grateful for that. Because if that were the case, if the only way I could get noticed was drama, then I would stop making content entirely. Really. I would just quit. Okay?
Well, you heard it here first, folks. DSP is going to wind up quitting, I guess, because that is the only way that people tune into his stream. There is a reason that people come for the pre-stream and leave before the gameplay. It's because they're looking for these meltdowns. They're looking for the drama. That's all he's really good for. He's just so deep into denial that he can't acknowledge that. He doesn't actually see it for what it is. The pignosis is so deep that he's actually pignetized himself.
I would have enough. I'd be like, that's enough of that crap. So, what just popped up on my screen? Oh, okay. Never mind, nothing bad. Okay, so there you have it. And there we go. Yeah, everything froze for a second and then it worked. I guess I had a blip there. Okay, cool. Are we good? Oh, beside this guy. Yep. Basically, a bunch of idiots showed up to talk shit when I was saying that. Because, you know, they don't like reality. They like to live in their parallel dimension. And they don't believe reality for what it is. So, fuck you and get out of my chat. Okay. What happened? There was a blip over here. And then a bunch of people got banned at the same time for being trolls. So, that's what happened. Okay. Anyway. So,
just want to remind you that this is a guy who is constantly complaining about being backlogged on games and not having any time to do anything, but he just spent 40, almost 50 seconds banning people and sitting in silence. And that's 40 to 50 seconds at 1.25 times speed. So imagine that at normal speed. Very cool and robust content.
That's that. I'm happy I didn't get involved in that. I'm so busy I probably wouldn't have done the documentary justice anyway, and now it seems like I've dodged a huge bullet, so I think I made the right decision. Thank you all for helping me with that too. I will say that. If it was only through your actual feedback, your actual input, that allowed me to make the proper decision. If I had just, you know, again, kind of rolled with stuff, I probably would have done something that I regretted, you know? And you got to look at the climate and the atmosphere around you, and you got to read the room. And essentially, what many of you said at that time was, do not involve yourself with that stuff. It's just going to be detrimental to you and everyone around you. And I think I made the right decision. I think you guys were correct, and I think that we're on the right track right now. Okay? Let's keep it that way. Let's separate ourselves from that shit. That vortex of toilet shit that wants to spin around in YouTube, right?
Hey, scat joke. You knew it wouldn't be a DSP segment without one. What a classic. Every time that he talks about the YouTube vortex of shit or whatever, I always think that he's gonna say Snortex, and I'm gonna get my confirmation that he's seen my videos. Not that it really matters, but it would make me laugh. And maybe I'd even get my own shout out. That'd be big ups. But apparently we're moving on positively. The audience has told us that we're in fact moving in the right direction, and this is the style of content they want to see. They want 100,000 RPGs and to not watch any of the gameplay. Bye-bye drama, we're not interacting with you ever again until tomorrow on the next level 1 pre-stream. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, categories.
Okay, anyway, so thank you guys for helping.
I agree, DSP. Thank all of you guys for helping. And by helping, I mean with the algorithm, by leaving all of your comments, which we're going to take a look at right now. 1 Minute Man 38 says, he says one negative thing about Tifa and I'm gonna run wild on him, brother. I absolutely agree with you. DSP better behave when it comes to my girl Tifa and her massive yonkers. The Chody Taint says, big ups Tifa's yonkers. I absolutely agree, Chody Taint. Big ups Tifa's yonkers. There's clearly a running theme so far, in case you couldn't tell. But in all seriousness, Sir Attenborough says, I'm a mature adult. Oh no, this game's gonna give me Japanese cooties. Look at all the immature sexual content. That's definitely how DSP behaves. He loves to LARP as a mature adult while behaving like an actual child. And Durwood Mixlevich says, we'll just click this one, it doesn't matter, chooses the one showing the most cleavage. This is obviously a reference to the Yakuza clip that was shown in the last video, where DSP sat there and complained about how hostess clubs exist and Japanese people go to them. And when forced to do such an activity, he decided to go with the girl that was showing the most cleavage and skin possible. Seems counterintuitive to me as well, but hey, to each their own, I guess. Not even the one I would have picked personally. The other girl had glasses on. But that's gonna do it for today's video. But that's it for today's video. Shout out to everybody who watched it, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snore tags.